The chain rule is used when you have a function of a function. Right? What do I mean by a function of a function? Well, if you had equal to y equal to x plus 5 to b cubed, there's only one function of x. It's the x plus 5. But there's two operations on it. So to evaluate this, the first thing you must do is work out x plus 5. And then what have you got to do? You've got to cube it. Yes? So that's why we say it's a function of a function. To differentiate a function of a function, 90% of what you differentiate will be a chain rule in one form or the other. Yes? Use the chain rule. To use the chain rule, you let u equal to the operation you do first. So what would you have to do first? X plus 5. And what does y then become? U to b cubed. You work out du dx. Differentiate 1x, 1, and 5, 0. And then you get dy du. Differentiate u to be cubed, 3u squared. And then dy dx is equal to dy du by du dx. dy du is 3u squared by du dx is 1, which is 3 times what's u? X plus 5 to b squared times the 1, which is just 5. Yeah. Now, I've taught differentiation now for over 30 years. Right? There's two ways to teach the chain rule. That is one way. That's the way I teach it. Because you always have a rule to go back to. Yes? You let u equal to do what you do first, then you get y in terms of u. And the chain rule then is dy dx is dy du by du dx. I could teach it to you like this. Y is equal to x plus 5 to b cubed. Then I can just give you dy dx straight up. You treat that as if it's an x. So it's 3 times that to be what? Squared. So it's 3 times x plus 5 to be squared by the derivative of the x plus 5. Yes? Which is 3 times x plus 5 to be squared by. Differentiate x, 1, and the 5. It's 3 times x plus 5 to be squared. Yes? Now, this is fine. It is grand, you can differentiate with it, but you never have something concrete to go back to. Yes? And what I find out with students is, I teach them this rule, and they cop on to this themselves. Right? That's generally the way it is. If y was equal to the square root of 2x squared minus 4, that's y equal to 2x squared minus 4 to what power? 1/2. That's a function of a function. What's the first thing you have to do? Work out 2x squared minus 4. And then what have you got to do? Get its square root. So you'd have to let u equal to the 2x squared minus 4. That means y now is equal to u to what power? 1/2. Du dx is equal to 4x. Yep. And dy du, square root of u, 1 over 2 root u. Then I say dy dx is equal to dy du by du dx, which is dy du 1 over 2 root u by du dx 4x. 2 will go into 4 twice. I have 2x all over the square root of u, 2x squared minus 4. You could have said y is equal to 2x squared minus 4 to the power of a half. That dy dx is equal to, you treat that as an x, so it's a half that to what power? So it's a half 2x squared minus 4 to the power of minus a half by the derivative of what was inside, 2x squared minus 4. Yes? A half, that to the minus a half is 1 over twice the square root of 2x squared minus 4. To the minus a half means 1 over times the derivative of that, 4x. So 2 will go into that, 2x all over the square root of 2x squared minus 4. Yeah. Now, during all my years of teaching, there was one stage I used to teach it like that. Right? And for the last 20 years, I've only done that. Because doing this, they never had a rule if they were stuck. You know, if it was a chain rule, they didn't have something really concrete to go back to that they could work through. All right? So that's chain rule. The other chain rules you differently come to. Y is equal to sine 3x. That's a function of a function. What have you got to work out first? 3x. And then what? Get its sine. Yes? So you let u equal to what you do first. And then y becomes the sine of u. du dx is equal to, differentiate 3x, 3. And dy du is equal to differentiate sine u, cos u. Then dy dx is equal to dy du by du dx. dy du, cosine u, times 3, which is 3 times the cosine of 3x. That's what it gives. If y is equal to sine 3x, well then I could say dy dx is equal to, I treat that as an x. Sine x becomes what? When I differentiate sine x, I get cos x. So that becomes cos 3x by the derivative of what? The 3x. So it's equal to cos 3x times 3, which is 3 times the cosine of 3. If y was equal to the sine of 5x minus 3, I would say u is equal to 5x minus 3, and then y becomes the sine of u. Du dx is equal to, differentiate 5x, 5. And dy du is equal to, differentiate sine u, cos u. And dy dx then is equal to dy du by du dx, which is dy du cosine u times 5, which is 5 times the cosine of u, 5x minus 3. Yeah, I'm not going doing this now the opposite way. Just a note for you. If y is equal to the sine of ax, well then dy dx, sorry. Alright, that's correct. I meant to do that as a cos. When you differentiate cos, it becomes minus sine. Right? Dy dx is equal to a times the cosine of ax. And if y is equal to cosine ax, well then dy dx is equal to minus a times sine ax. Yes? If it's anything other than sine x, if it becomes a 2x or 3x or 4x or anything, it now becomes a chain rule. It's what's known as a function of a function. Do you understand that? Yes? Okay? Now, I have really covered chain rules. If y was equal to the 4th root of 6 minus the square root of x, well, I'd let u equal to 6 minus the square root of x, and y be equal to u to what power? 1/4. Du dx would become, differentiate 6 to 0, minus the square root of x, minus 1 over 2 root x. And dy du, u to the quarter, a quarter u to minus 3/4. Have you any questions? No? So therefore then dy dx is equal to dy du by du dx. dy du, 1/4 u to the minus 3/4 times minus 1/2 root x. That's 1/4 times u to the 3/4 by minus 1/2 root x. The quarter and a half, that's 1/8, yes? Right, I'll write it this way. It's minus 1/8 times, what is u? 6 minus root x to the 3/4 times root x. And that's what it is. I can't multiply the root x into the 6 because that's to the power of 3/4. It'd be like if I had 5 times x minus 2 to be squared. Can I say it's 5x minus 10 to be squared? No. Because if I multiply the 5 in there, I'm changing it from a 5 to a what? A 5 squared. Yes? So you can't do that. If I had 25 times x minus 2 to be squared, I could say that's 5 squared times x minus 2 to be squared. I could now put in the 5. 5x minus 10 to be squared. Yes? Because it was squared, I can put it into a squared bracket and take out the power, but you couldn't do it the other way around. Okay, that's enough on chain rule. I'll do ones now that are more than